Hi, I'm Jack Cole, Product Manager for Professional Solutions at Focusrite. We're here today to talk about ISA C8X. We're going to delve into why we've made ISA C8X, take a look at some of the core functionality, and explain how you can get the best out of your sessions with it. ISA C8X is a 26-in, 28-out USB-C audio interface featuring 8 mic preamps, 2 of which are ISA transformer-based channels. The ISA range has served producers and engineers since 1985, and with ISA C8X we're evolving the range to meet the needs of the modern studio. The original ISA preamp and EQ module was designed to be part of all analog workflows, with signals ultimately arriving on tape at the end. In the modern era, computer-based recording is of course far more common, so we've decided to draw on ISA's legacy and combine that with our modern audio interface expertise. We've done that to build on ISA's technology and ethos, but upgraded into a modern workflow. A key part of that ethos is that great sounding recordings lead to great sounding mixes, so there's a lot of emphasis on front-end sound and sonic options with ISA C8X. Recording workflows can vary a lot, as can performers and the types of instruments that engineers are ultimately tasked with capturing. For this reason, we've included an array of sonic options, but there are 2 potential drawbacks when doing that: control and recall. As you add more flexibility and options, it can become cumbersome to actually configure everything, even more so if you want to recall all those parameters at a later date. For those reasons, we've built remote control and recallability into pretty much every facet of ISA C8X's design, allowing you to move from session to session. Tactile control is really important. There's a lot of very interesting analog circuitry under the hood, and we want people to be able to interact with that in the most direct way possible. First off, let's talk about the mic inputs. ISA C8X features 8 remote controllable mic pre's, with the first 2 being ISA Lundahl LL1538 transformer based. Each of those ISA inputs has up to 79 dB of gain, switchable impedance, high pass filter, switchable insert points, and analog tone shaping options, which we'll get to in a little bit. Gain is set in 10 dB steps with a 1 dB fine control. The gain can also be set remotely from Focusrite Control 2 for Windows and macOS, or from iOS and Android devices. We've then got 6 remote controllable modern Focusrite preamps, each with 69 dB of gain and featuring air and drive. We'll get to those effects a little bit later. The lineage of these preamps can be traced back to our RedNet 4 Dante interface. We wanted to create a low noise and low distortion preamp that crucially was remote controllable. That design has evolved over the years, making its way into the RedNet MP8R and RedNet X2P, before ending up in our 4th generation Scala interfaces, and now ISA C8X. Having both the heritage ISA preamps and our new modern preamps in the same interface opens up a lot of options when you're tracking. We've got our oldest preamp and our newest preamp, both with their own distinct character and sound, and with separate tone shaping options. Gain for all of the preamps can also be set automatically using auto gain. Auto gain can be run from the front panel, or from Focusrite Control 2. You can auto gain a single channel or any combination of simultaneous channels. Channels can be stereo linked, so settings can be applied to 2 channels at the same time. In order to stereo link 2 channels, hold down the first channel and then press the second one. The order that you press the buttons dictates which direction settings get copied in. For example, to copy settings from channel 1 to channel 2, hold down channel 1 and then press channel 2. To copy settings in the opposite direction, hold down channel 2 and press channel 1. To unlink, simply hold down both selectors at the same time. Each input can be set to either mic or line, with the line circuitry bypassing the preamp entirely, though you can still switch in inserts or console if you wish. Channels 1 and 2 also have a DI input for connecting guitars and basses directly. This passes through the Lundahl transformer and inherits all of the features of the mic preamp. On the right side of the front panel, we've got the monitor section. Here you can engage dim, which will quickly lower the output to your speakers, mute, which will mute it entirely, and mono. Mono allows you to quickly check how your mix sounds when summed down from stereo. There's also a talkback button, so you can communicate with talent in a separate live room or vocal booth. We've then got the monitor output level control, and buttons that will allow you to toggle between 3 sets of speakers: main, alt 1, and alt 2. Finally, on the front panel, we've got 2 independent headphone outputs, each with their own level and mute controls. So on the rear panel, we've got 12 line outputs. This lets you connect multiple sets of stereo or mono speakers, an immersive setup up to 7.1.4, or a combination of speakers and outboard gear. Every output includes anti-thump circuitry, so if you power the unit off or on while the speakers are still on, you won't get any nasty bangs, potentially damaging your speakers or, even worse, your hearing. ISA C8X is designed with permanent installation in mind. That's why we've got separate mic and line connectors and insert points that you can wire up directly to your patch bay. If you want to expand the channel count even further, then C8X features 2 ADAT ins and 2 ADAT outs, allowing you to get 16 channels in and out at 48K. You can also get 8 channels in and out up to 96K. Those digital expansion options are rounded out by SPDIF in and out, MIDI in and out, and word clock in and out. ISA C8X connects to your computer over USB-C and is class compliant, meaning that you don't need to install a driver when using it on macOS. Focusrite Control 2 also allows you to change the routing and mixes on the unit, as well as recalling previous sessions. There's also a Focusrite Control 2 app that runs on both iOS and Android devices. From the app, you can control all preamp and monitoring features, as well as controlling foldback mixes. Up to 6 custom mixes can be configured, containing playback channels from the computer and hardware inputs, and those mixes can be sent to multiple destinations. Multiple instances of the Focusrite Control 2 mobile app can be run at the same time, meaning that as the engineer, you can use it to adjust your monitoring levels, and the talent can adjust their foldback mixes. Remote control allows for simplicity of configuration, whether you're in front of the unit or in the live room. This is particularly useful if you're actually tracking yourself. Also, when you're jumping between sessions recording different instruments, recall is really useful. For example, if you started the day dialing in the perfect settings to record drums, then switch to recording guitar, only to realise you need to record some more drums, you can recall those prior settings. When designing the ISA preamps back in the 1980s, we set out to make a design that was low noise and low distortion. However, it's true to say that the benchmarks for those qualities have changed since then. What was considered clean back then might not be considered clean now. As a result, ISA fits into what we think is a really interesting category of mic pre. It doesn't overtly colour the signal, but it does add character. The Lundahl transformer does introduce saturation and distortion, particularly at low frequencies, but it's never overbearing. If you're craving more analog saturation or looking to accentuate the high-end lift often associated with transformer preamps, then that's where our 430 Air and console features come in. 430 Air is an inductor-based high shelf filter, which I'd describe as a sort of EQ tilt accentuating the high end. The design is taken directly from the ISA 430 Mark II's mic air circuit, and it lets you bring out high-end clarity and lift on things like vocals, strings, and cymbals. The idea of console is simple. Typically, in digital recording workflows, you have a signal that's going to feed an analog to digital converter. That signal will typically sound very clean up until the point that you clip the converter, at which point it will sound terrible. Conversely, in an all-analogue workflow, you typically have a preamp driving a channel on a desk. That channel might then go through various summing buses, EQs, and compression modules, all the way out to a tape machine. The amount of saturation and non-linearity that gets added largely depends on how hot the signal is at any given part of the chain. This is what we've tried to replicate with console. Console is a variable soft clip circuit that we've tuned such that you can get incredibly subtle or really obvious saturation depending on how much you dial in and how much you push the gain, all while sounding as musical as possible. It's based around a Zener diode network with variable control, paired with a subtle low-end boost to gently mimic the contour effect that you would get when working with analog tape. What this means is, if you enable console and turn the amount all the way down, you'll just get a little bit of added thump. As you then turn the amount up, you'll start to get more and more saturation, to the point that if you max console out, the saturation reaches the point where it effectively acts like a limiter, meaning you can keep turning the gain up, but you'll never clip the channel. Console's great for adding a bit more beef and excitement to signals, and since it's included on the DI path, it also sounds great on bass guitar. Both 430 Air and console are switched in and out on relays, so you can rest assured that if you don't want them in the signal path, they're not colouring the signal at all. On channels 3 through 8, we have slight variations of those effects, Air and Drive. Air first premiered on our Claret 8 Pre-X interface in 2015. Again, it's a high shelf boost, this time using a resistor capacitor network. It's less subtle than 430 Air, and it's great for adding clarity and livening up any dull sounding signals. Drive is the only DSP effect on ISA C8X. It's another variable control that adds harmonic saturation. It's always difficult to describe audio effects in words, but to me, Drive sounds more like a full range harmonic exciter, where console is a bit more focused on the mids. Inputs 1 and 2 also feature switchable impedance. This has been a staple of the ISA range since the early 2000s. The way microphones interact with mic preamps varies somewhat with impedance, so by changing the impedance of the preamp, we can very subtly adjust the character of the mic. Put really simply, if we use a higher impedance preamp, generally the result will be a fast response to transients, giving a greater sense of detail accompanied by a little bit of extra level. On the other side, if we use a lower impedance, that has the effect of lightly smearing those transients, resulting in a somewhat smoother sound and a slightly lower signal level. This only really applies to dynamic moving coil or ribbon microphones. You won't really notice the effects of impedance changes on condenser mics. When using the mic inputs, there are 4 impedance options available. The default is ISA 110, which matches the impedance from the original ISA 110 modules. If you want the pure ISA 110 experience, then simply set the impedance to 110 and disable all of the other features. Then we have one option to lower the impedance, which is labelled low. Again, this will subtly slow down transients. Next, we've got medium, which results in an impedance that's very close to that of most modern non-transformer preamps. And finally, high, which exceeds that impedance substantially and provides the cleanest transient response. If you're using the DI input, then you've got two impedance options, low and high. These are most noticeably different when using a bass guitar with passive pickups. Low will give you a slightly smoother tone, where high will accentuate the attack of each note. Finally, we also have a high pass filter set to a corner frequency of 75 Hz, which you can use to get rid of any unwanted rumble. That's a lot of sonic options, so I'm going to run through a few scenarios now and outline how I might configure things. If we're recording an acoustic guitar with old strings played with a pick, typically we'd probably be using a small or a large diaphragm condenser of some sort. Impedance isn't going to make a dramatic difference, but since pick attacks can sometimes be a bit overpowering, perhaps opt for one of the lower impedance options to try and smooth that out a little bit. We might then combine that with 430 air if the strings are a little bit dull, just to brighten things up a touch. Next, let's imagine we've got a vocalist and they're right up on the grill of a Shure SM7B. Impedance will make a difference here, so we could go for high and increase the transient response to get improved clarity of diction, or we could go a bit lower, try and smooth out those plosives and S's. We could bring in the high pass filter to reduce the proximity effect and bring in a decent amount of console for some extra bite and power in the mid-range. If recording a string quartet, you might throw up a nice stereo pair in front of them on a concert hall stage. Since it's a stereo pair, we might want to link inputs 1 and 2. Now any settings that we make will propagate to both input 1 and input 2. Impedance isn't going to change much here, but if there's any rumble from passing traffic, for example, we might still engage the high pass filter, and we could experiment with 430 air to give a little bit of high-end lift. If you want to take things a step further, then a large part of the sound of the Focusrite Forte and studio consoles is the front end. For that reason, it might be worth experimenting with running either full mixes or sub-mixes through the first two channels. And that's of course really easy to achieve if you've got everything hooked up to a patch bay by using a pair of line outputs to feed the mic inputs. Quick technical note, the line outputs have a maximum output level of plus 24 dBu, where the mic inputs have a maximum input level of plus 16 dBu, so you'll need to turn the line outputs down by 8 dB or so in Focusrite Control 2. We can then experiment with both 430 air if we want to add an extra bit of high-end sheen, or console if we want to fatten up the mix. When it came to looking at A to D and D to A converters for ISA C8X, we turned to our RedNet range. As a result, ISA C8X has excellent input and output specs, including 125 dB of dynamic range on the line outputs. ISA C8X is backed by our 3-year warranty, and if you ever have any problems with your interface, you can get in touch with our award-winning support team. They're available 24/7, 365 days a year, and they're a top bunch. I hope this has given you a bit more insight into ISA C8X. For more information, please visit focusrite.com/ISA.